Frodo's Firebrand sword is an easy effect to make in DaVinci Resolve Fusion. The first step is to separate the blade from the hilt. I'm using GIMP as my image editor. I make 2 duplicates of the layer image and rename them hilt and blade. Then I add a layer mask to hilt and blade. Using the free select tool, I outline the blade, taking care to be accurate where it joins with the hilt. I close the view of the other 2 layers to work just with the blade layer. I invert the selection and use bucket fill to quickly erase the hilt. Keeping the same selection, I close the view of the blade and open the view of the hilt. I invert the selection again and use bucket fill to quickly erase the blade. When I open up the blade view, the hilt and blade should join together perfectly even as 2 separate images. I apply the layer masks. Working with just the blade view now, I make a duplicate layer of the blade. I add a drop shadow to the blade copy. I lengthen and move the shadow to where I want the fire glow or flame licks to show. Then I save each layer image separately as a PNG file. Working in DaVinci Resolve now, I import the shadowed blade and the fire animation that I want to use on it. Dragging the 2 images to the timeline, they look like this. Going into the Effects menu, I drag in a fusion composition and make it about the same length as the fire animation. Moving to the Fusion page, I drag down my fire animation and connect it to the media output. Then I drag down my blade image. I drag in a transform node for the blade. This lets me resize and reposition the blade over the fire animation as I need to. I connect the blade image node to the transform node, and then connect the transform node to the fire animation node. This will use the blade image as a mask on the fire animation to cut out everything else. Zooming in, it looks pretty cool. I drag down a second transform node. I connect the fire animation to the second transform node, and then connect the transform node to the media out. This will reposition the fire and the blade together as one unit. Then I go back to the first transform node and move just the blade to find a better fire color. That takes some experimenting with the different transform node options, even inverting both images upside down so I can have the red on the bottom and the yellow on the top of the blade. Once I'm satisfied with the color, I use the second transform node to recenter the blade roughly on the background. I import the hilt image that I had saved earlier and drag that down to the Fusion page. I drag down a third transform node that I can use to reposition just the hilt. Then I drag in a merge node. The flaming blade will be in the background and the hilt will be in the foreground of the merged image. I use the third transform node to reposition the hilt on the flaming blade. Now I'm ready to save it. I only want to save the fusion composition, so I'm choosing in-out range. I give it a name and a file location. The render settings to choose are Format QuickTime, Codec GoPro Cineform, Type RGB 16-bit. Under Frame Rate, check Export Alpha. In the render setting under the file location, select individual clips. Then under Alpha mode, choose Straight. Add to Render Queue and render all. This will render the Firebrand sword without any background image so that I can overlay it on top of other images, move it, resize it, and rotate it any way I want to. Slowing down the speed of the animation gives it a molten lava type of look. And that's all there is to it. Thanks for watching.